Hello and welcome to a new episode of Adobe Creative Cloud TV. My name is Terry White, and in this episode we're going to take a look at how to get started with Adobe Muse CC. Now I know some of you that watch me or follow my channel realize that I already have a how to get started with Adobe Muse video up that's actually been up for quite a while now. It's been up probably close to a year. Well, that video was a year ago. Adobe Muse continues to get better with each new major feature update, and it gets updates on a regular basis. So I thought with Creative Cloud, and now that Muse is almost, since the last video, almost a year has passed, it's time to get started again. But this time much easier because of what you can now do with the new features of Adobe Muse. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, I say new features, but it just depends on when you're watching this video. My last major update was November 2013, but depending on when you watch this video, months from now, yours will even be newer with even more new things. So let's get started with my version. And of course, the first place you're going to want to start, or the number one thing people want to know how to do, is how to create a new site. Now, I have recent sites that I've been working on that I could open, but if you're starting with Muse for the first time, you won't have those. So let's create a new site from scratch. When I say create new site, it brings up the new site dialog. And of course, at this point, I can choose any options I want. But the best part about this, especially as a beginner, is that Muse has really good defaults and we don't really need to change anything. As a matter of fact, the only thing I will point out here is that you can start an initial layout as desktop by default, or tablet or phone. So if you're just building a phone site, you can jump right to the phone layout. If you're just building one for tablets, you can jump right to the tablet layout. Now we're going to start with desktop, but we can come back and add in tablet and phone later on, and we will do that. The only other thing I'm going to have you change is we're going to change our columns from 1 to 5, just because I found over the year that it's been easier to lay things out if I have column guides on the page that are visible. So let's go ahead and click OK, and that will give us our first look at our new site. Now, if you're an InDesign user or you're used to InDesign, then you'll be right at home with Adobe Muse, because Muse and InDesign share a lot of the same thought process and same functionality. So when you go to lay out pages in Muse, you'll think about the same keyboard shortcuts and the same things you would do from InDesign. As a matter of fact, if you're an InDesign user, you look at the planning stage here, and it looks just like a giant version of the Pages panel. So if you were to spread your Pages panel up to take out the whole monitor, that's what this would look like. So for example, you have Pages at the top here, and you have Master Pages at the bottom, and your Pages panel in InDesign could be set up the same way. So let's add a few pages in. As I hover near the home page that I get by default, you'll notice that I get plus signs all around it. Now it lets me dictate where I'm going to add my next page. So if I click the plus sign on the right, I'm going to get another page here, and we're going to make this our galleries page. Now, by the way, we're building a photography website. You can build whatever kind of website you want. You can add as many or as few pages as you want. So for example, maybe we want an About Us page, and we're also going to want a Contact Us page. And oops, I forgot, I want a services page. Let's go ahead and add it in. I could either add it in at the end, or I could add it in the middle. So if I add it in at the end, and then decide that I want it somewhere else, I can pick these pages up and move them around. You can change the order any way you want. You can change the hierarchy any way you want. So for example, maybe I want services there and next to that. So you can arrange this to your heart's content and continue to add pages or delete pages that you no longer need. So luckily I have multiple undos. I can kind of put this back to where I want it. And now I'm ready to go. So at this point, all my pages look the same. They have a white rectangle and a dark gray area. That's because they're all using the same A master page, just like InDesign. So if I double click on the master page, it will open up, and we can now look at the anatomy of a Muse page. So first of all, we have this dark gray area. In InDesign, this would be your pasteboard, but in Muse, this is actually your browser fill. So this does count. Whereas normally if something's off the page in InDesign, it won't print, but this is a web page, so everything is showing. So the browser fill is, think of that as that color, pattern, gradient, image, whatever you want behind your web content. And you go to any web page on the internet today, and it's something. It's a color, a gradient, a pattern, an image. It's something behind the content. And maybe it's just a white. Maybe it's just like on, on some of the major corporate sites. They don't really do a lot of fancy things in the background. They just use a solid color. So you can make it whatever you want it to be. So if I go to the browser fill, I can go ahead and click the color. Maybe I do just want it to be white, or maybe I want it to be black, or maybe I want it to be yellow. Whatever I want it to be, I can change it. If I don't want it to be a color, I can go in and say, make it a gradient, and then I'll get the choice of a gradient, or make it a solid. I can go in and make it an image, so I can fill the background with an image and then choose how that image is going to be displayed. So any way that you want to handle that. Now, I'll switch it back to the default gray for now. We'll come back in, maybe make a couple changes to that as we go. The next thing is you have this rectangle, which looks like a page, but and it is called the page inside of Muse, and you can put, it's kind of like a visual reference for where your content would go. You don't have to have that visual reference if you don't want it. So if I say no fill, no stroke, now I don't have a visual reference that will show on my web page. If I were to launch this site now, it would be just solid gray. You can put whatever you want, anywhere you want, even if it's off the page into the browser fill, it doesn't matter. So that's just for your visual reference and for your design if you choose to have. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it white for now. I'll leave the stroke off. Now the next thing are these blue guides. What are these? Well, you have the top of page, which just simply extends the browser fill at the top, because a lot of times people use the browser fill for their logo, for their navigation, for the things they want above the content. And that's what this lets me do. The next one is the header, just kind of a visual reference for all the things that I want to keep on the page, but above the content. And then we have the footer, which is everything below this line, even if it's off the page into the browser fill. We have the bottom of the page, which is just extends the footer area. And we have the bottom of the browser fill. So you can make those any size you want to condense or contract or whatever around your content. And again, your content doesn't have to be filled with anything. And if you do choose to fill it, it could be with a color or a gradient or a image or anything else you want. So just like the browser fill. All right. Now, the next thing, that was number one. And actually it was number 1 and 2, creating the site, working with master pages. We're going to have one more thing to do with the master page, but we're going to jump temporarily to number 3, which is placing images. So how do I get an image on here? Maybe I do want my logo to be on every page. Well, just like in InDesign, we choose File, Place. We would then go out and grab an image to place. Now, the first thing that probably comes to mind is what file formats can I use? Well, think about the web, because that's what we're doing here. So JPEGs, images, obviously can be on the web, so you can place those in Muse. GIFs, GIF, those can be placed inside Muse. Ping.png, those can be placed inside Muse. And the thing I love about pings is they can be transparent. They can have transparency or no background. So those are the 3 most common graphic formats. We also support animation. So if you wanted to place or use Flash, you could place a .swf file if you choose to. Or one of the newer animation formats, such as Adobe Edge Animate, which is HTML5 and CSS and JavaScript based, you can place a .oam file that you export out from Edge Animate. So that's 5 so far. There's one more. I'm going to cover it in just a few minutes. But let's go ahead and jump in to grab our logo, which is a ping file. And again, because it can be transparent, it is. So it's actually my logo here. And I can scale that just by grabbing a corner. I can put it anywhere I want, on the page, off the page, because again, it's the web. There is really no page per se. And I can have that right above the browser, right in the browser fill, right above the content or page area. Now, that was starting to place images. We're going to jump back to that in just a moment. Let's go back to number 2, which is continuing working with the master page, because there's one more thing we want to do. And that's actually put in our navigation. If we go look at our site right now, our site's been updated with all the logos, and even if we put content on all the pages, once the person went to the home page, they would have no way to get to galleries, services, or any of the other ones. So the way we need to handle that is put in navigation, and that's when we need to look at widgets. The widget library in Muse allows you to go in and grab predefined widgets that help you build your site. So there's form widgets, composition widgets, menus, panels, slideshows, and the new social widgets that were added this past November. So let's go ahead and go into the menus. And let's drag in either a horizontal or vertical menu. We can put it wherever we want. And you'll notice that when it comes in, it's already defined to know the pages of your site. It pops up with a options panel that you can go, all the widgets do, that you can go in and choose. For example, I want all my pages to be in the menu, not just the top level ones. So if I do stack some underneath, those will be drop downs. I also want the spacing to be uniform spacing instead of size. Now I can pick that menu up and put it anywhere I want, even in the browser fill area. And Smart Guides will help me align it. As you saw, it aligns to the edge there. And then at this point, I can go in and kind of say, wait, that looks kind of boring and drab. That's because widgets, all of them come in this way. They come in this light gray, white type, boring look because we want you to redesign it. So for example, if I don't like this box around my menus or that color, I can say, you know what, change the fill to none. And now my menus will just be text. They won't have a box around them. Or make it maybe a black box, or a yellow box, or a green box, or a blue box, or whatever color you want, or no color if you don't want. So just by saying none. So you don't have to have a box around your menus. Now, menus have multiple states, especially on desktop computers. So if we go to the states panel, we can see that when the menu, when you're not on a particular page, the menu will be black. But when you're on a particular page, it will be this color gray, the active state. So instead of it being that, I want to change the active state to maybe red or burgundy or whatever I want. And we'll choose red so it just stands out in this case. And now I can go in and continue designing each of the states. And again, some of the states don't have to have boxes. Some of the text could be different colors on the states. You design it any way you want. Speaking of the text, I don't like this font. So let's go ahead and double click, get to the actual text, go to the font panel and choose, I want a sans serif font like Arial. So I can just quickly and easily change that to be, oh, I didn't change it actually. Let's change that, let's try it one more time. There we go. Change it to Arial. And now I've got Arial as my font. And I can change the size and the color and all the other things we talked about. So when we bring in a widget, just know that you can define it any way you want. You can redesign it. So now if we go back to the site and look at it, it has updated with our menu bar. And we have one more master page thing to do, and that's create a second master. You can create as many web pages as you want and as many masters as you need. So I can say, give me a new master. It's going to be B in this case, just like in design. And in the later versions of Muse, I can now even drag one master on top of another to start my design. So instead of me having to do all that work over again, now my B master page looks just like my A master, except I don't want the rectangle to be filled with a color, and I want my browser fill to actually be an image. So I can go and grab an image. Let's go grab one from my landscapes. And we'll use, oh, I don't know, I can't really see these. Yeah, that's probably the bike. I don't think that one will work very well. Let's see what it looks like. How about the B? Yeah, we'll use the B. And we'll say that that's going to go from the top and it's going to be scaled to fill. All right, so now if we go back to the site, that master page has been defined, and I can say, you know, that's going to be a good page for the About Us. So I can just drag that master onto that page, and now that page is styled that way. They all have the navigation. We're ready to go. So that was number 1, creating the site. Number 2, working with master pages. And let's continue with number 3, which is placing images. Speaking of which, let's go to our Contact Us page. Let's zoom it down a little bit, and let's place another image. Let's go to our File menu and choose Place. And I talked about the various formats we can place, the 5 so far. There's one more, a 6th one, which is .psd. I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, doesn't that mean Photoshop document? And you're right. Whoa, stop. You can't put Photoshop documents on the internet like that. They won't display in a browser, at least not reliably. You're right, but we can place them in Muse. And you might be thinking, well, why would you do that? Well, when I choose Open to choose that PSD, I get a place gun just like in design. I have my nice guides to work with, and I can scale that and place it, and it will size it down 24% from its original size. And now if I were to put this site up or publish it, it would automatically optimize that as a JPEG or a GIF or PNG or whatever it needed to do, whatever Muse felt would look best. But then you're thinking, well, why would you even put a PSD there in the first place? Because it's a work in progress. Maybe you're doing something where you're turning layers on and off in Photoshop. So for example, if I right click on this, I could say edit original. Since it's a PSD, it'll open up in Photoshop. I could duplicate the layer, just like I always do. I could grab my lasso tool and I could say, you know what, this production shot with the light stand was kind of cool, but I actually don't want the light stand on my website, or at least not on the About Us page. And I can go in and select it with the lasso. As you can see, being very careful and painstaking, I'm not. I can do a content-aware fill and fill that area to get rid of it on that layer. And I just see a little bit of something left over there. Let's grab our spot healing tool and get rid of that one little spot. Okay, there we go. So I got rid of it, and I'm going to save it, close it, save it, head back to Muse, and give Muse a second here, and Muse updates. And Muse says, okay, I'm looking at the current version of that PSD, which does not have the light stand. So now I could go back and forth, turning layers on, doing more things, and it will always update my Muse site. That's why you place a PSD. Now, so that's number 3, working with images. Number 4, working with text. Let's go ahead and grab our type tool, just like we would in InDesign, and we can go ahead and grab text frame here, and we can say, contact us. And of course, we can make that whatever size we want. That's a given. We can make it bigger. But what about fonts? So now let's deal with fonts, and this is the kind of thing that designers go crazy over. So first of all, you have 3 types of fonts to work with. You have web-safe fonts, which these are the 11 web-safe fonts that are compatible with everything. In other words, these 11 fonts are built into all modern devices. Every mobile device, all the modern browsers, cross-platform, you work with any of those, you're good to go. So if I choose Helvetica, I know Helvetica will display no matter where this site is being viewed. However, if I want something more exciting, like Times really isn't that exciting, and Comic Sans you guys would go nuts over if I use. So we don't want those. What else can I do? Well, I do notice my system fonts are here. Hey, all my fonts are here. Yay! I could use A-Byte, for example. Crazy font I found on the web somewhere. Well, that font's great, but if I use that font, you notice that I get a little symbol here that says, uh-oh, you've used a font that's a system font, and it's going to make it into an image. So this would not be selectable text. So that's probably not a good idea. So even though you have access to all your fonts, you should not use them on a regular basis because it's going to make your site full of images and heavy and slow to load. So then if I don't want to use the web-safe fonts because they're kind of boring, if I don't want to use the system fonts because they're going to make all these images and be too big, then what else can I do? Well, if we go up to the top here, we've got web fonts. And the web fonts, if we click, will bring up Typekit, which is built into Muse. So you can use Typekit fonts all you want, and you get over 400 that come with Muse, and you can scroll through, you can do searches, you can do style by style, you can do whatever you want, and choose any font you want to add into Muse. So for example, if I want to pick something here that kind of stands out, like Fresca, click OK. And now if I go to my font menu and scroll to the web fonts, Fresca is there. And now Fresca will be used. And if I preview this, even in my browser, File, Preview, Page, and Browser, that Fresca font is there and it's text. Now you're probably thinking, and you notice the PSD is now a JPEG. You're probably thinking, well, wait a minute. How is that working? Because I'm in Chrome or Safari or whatever, or Internet Explorer, whatever browser you're using. How does this work? How did that font get there? Because that font got installed in Muse, not in my browser. Well, Typekit adds a line of code to your page that pulls that font down from the Typekit server for whoever views your page, no matter where you're hosting your site. So your Typekit fonts are built into your web content. Once you upload it, it always works. Okay, so that's that. And now let's go back and continue working with this. Now I'm going to jump ahead to one of the other items, and that is one of the other widgets we can do. Since we're on the Contact Us page, one of the other things we might want to do is grab a contact form. So when I first created the video, you couldn't really work with the forms that easily unless you were hosting the site with Adobe. Now you can drag these forms on, and you can put in whatever email address you want this to go to. So terry@theweb.com, which is not my real email address. But anyway, I can add in any other fields I might want. I can do whatever I want to this form to make it work. Or make it what I want, including adding custom fields that aren't one of these. So now this form will go to that email address when it is submitted. So that's the beauty of the forms now. And of course, yes, you can go in and redesign them and change the font and change the color and change the style and move them around and do whatever you want to do, because you can. So that is working with one of the widgets, which is the Forms widget, which in the newer versions of Muse don't require the site to be hosted with Adobe. Okay, so now we've got that. Now let's go ahead and jump over to number 5, which is working with buttons and text. So working with buttons and hyperlinks. So let's say that we add in, we'll add in some more text here. We can say, feel free to visit our main site at terrywhite.com. Okay, so I'm telling them that they can click on this to go to terrywhite.com, but of course that doesn't do anything right now. That's just text. So let's add in a link. Let's highlight that terrywhite.com, and let's go to the hyperlinks area, which is up here. And we're just going to click on it, and we're just going to say that that goes to http://terrywhite.com. So hit return, and now that is a hyperlink. So that is how we add hyperlinks to text, just by going there and clicking on it. Or if it's linking to another page in your site, you can choose the other page in your site. Or if you want them to download a file like an MP3 or a PDF, you can link to the actual file and they can do that. So these are all the kinds of things that have been added since that last video I've done. Not links, of course, but files and things that we can do. So for example, let's do one more type of place image that we're going to link to, and that's placing a Photoshop button. So place will just bring in things as an image, even a PSD, but place Photoshop button looks for PSDs and does a certain kind of thing with them. So for example, I've got a Twitter logo here that I want to use, and the Twitter logo has multiple layers. So I can say that, hey, for the normal state, use the up for layer in that file. For the rollover state, use the over state of that file. So now when I click OK to place it, and we'll place it over here, for example, that image, when it's rolled over, will be darker blue because it will use the other layer in that PSD. And now if I want to add a link to that, I can just click and say that that should go to twitter.com/terrylwhite. So that will go to our Twitter page. And now if we preview this page in the browser, we should have a hyperlink that is ready to go, and we should have a rollover for a button that is also ready to go. So if we click that, you can see that that will go to Twitter. And if we go back, we can click this, and we can see that that will go to terrywhite.com, which takes a few more seconds to load, so we won't necessarily wait for that. But that will, and it's connecting and doing its thing. So that will, that's how we create hyperlinks, which is our number 5, our buttons and hyperlinks. Now, let's jump back over, and let's go back to the master page for a moment. And on this master page, I want to add in some more social type widgets. Well, you might remember, or if we go back a year, all of that had to be done with the insert HTML command. We had to go and grab code from Facebook to add a Facebook like button. We had to go grab, widgets from other sites to add them in. Well, now we don't have to do that anymore because we have a whole social widget library. So if I want to add a Photoshop, I'm sorry, not Photoshop, a Twitter follow, I can just drag in a Twitter follow widget and configure it with my Twitter handle. So if I say that this is not going to Adobe Muse, but it's going to me instead, then that will allow me to add in the follow on Terry White at Twitter. And if I want to add in a Facebook one, so for example, we could put in a Facebook like button. We just drag it over, and that's it, because there's nothing really to configure with a like button. People will sign in and like this page. And so all of these widgets are built in now to Muse, where before we would have to go grab the code from Google Maps to put in Google Maps, or grab the code from PayPal to put in a PayPal button. Now these are just easily draggable and configurable. And because I put those on the master page, they are now on all the pages. Okay, so next let's go to our services page. And in our services page, we're going to do one more. We're going to put in a video. Now, video is really not built into Muse. And before, I would have had you go to YouTube or Vimeo or Facebook, grab the embed code, put it in with the insert HTML command. Again, we don't have to do that anymore. So if I go to my social widgets and I want to bring in a YouTube video, I just drag in the YouTube widget. And it will then go in, it will pick up my default video or actually they're using one of my videos as the default, which is the old Adobe Muse. We're going full circle here, we're creating a vortex. The old Adobe Muse video of how to get started. And every YouTube video has a identifier number. So we're going to change this to the video we actually want to use here. So I need to go get that code or that video. So I'm going to head over to a text file that I've got this in. And here's the link to the video I want to use. If I head over to my browser, I can load that up so you can see it. And it's just a YouTube video, which is a time lapse of San Francisco. But that last bit here, everything after the equal sign is the code that actually points to that video. So I'm just going to copy it, head back to Muse. So any video you want on YouTube, just go get that, or Vimeo, just go get that identifier, paste it in, and hit return, and it will update to be that video. And of course, we can scale it. We want that smaller. It will update, make it smaller. We want it bigger, because this is an HD video. If we want, we can make it bigger. And it will add in the YouTube properties and everything we need to make that video work. So that's how we would add in social widgets, which is number 6, including YouTube, follow buttons, like buttons, all of the cool things we can do. All right, now let's jump to number 7. Number 7 is how to add a slideshow. So I'm going to close the services page for now, close the contact us page for now, close the B master, close the A master, and go back to the regular site. And actually, there is one more thing I want to do on the A master. Actually, no, I don't need to do it on the A master. We can do it right on the home page. So I want to add a slideshow on this page. I want a full screen slideshow, which is one of the newer slideshows we can do in Muse. One of the other things I want that slideshow to be is I want it to be underneath everything else. I want the logo still to be there, the navigation to be there, so I don't want it to cover this stuff up. So that's why I'm going to head over to Layers, which is fairly new in Muse. And I'm going to add in a new layer, and we'll put this layer below, layer number 2, and we'll call that layer Background Objects, like my slideshow. So now I'm on layer number 2, and now if I go into my widgets, and I go to my slideshows, there's the basic and blank and full screen and full screen, which is new, lightbox and thumbnails. I'm going to drag in a full screen slideshow. And there it is. And because I put it on the background layer, it is now behind everything else. Okay, so next thing we need to do is actually tell it what images we want to grab. So we just click the little folder there, and we'll tell it to go grab my landscape images. And we'll just go ahead and grab all of these. And it will fill that area up, getting rid of the sample images. Thank you, Muse team. And once that's loaded in the 20 images, the first one will display there. And we'll get rid of the counter up here that we don't need. And just like any other widget, we can go in and redefine any part of this. So if I don't want these buttons to be filled with white, or maybe I want the fill to be white, but I want it to be lower opacity, I can drop down the opacity of those buttons for navigation, and I can even pick the buttons up. Oops, pick the button up and move it around. So with that button there, now notice the buttons are also pinned. So if we're going to move this button, we need to also change the pin for it. There we go, and we'll change the pin for that one to be pinned to the right. So now my home page is actually a full screen slideshow that I can control the transitions. So transition maybe every 1 second instead of every half second. I'm sorry, transition every three and a half seconds, but the transition speed will be 1 second. There we go. And it will autoplay. So now if we preview this page in browser, that will show our home page. It's loading up that slideshow, building out all the HTML, so it takes a second or two to do that. But and speaking of preview, I choose to preview in browser because that way I know it's real. I know it's showing it to me in an actual web browser. But you can also preview right inside Muse. Muse will allow me to preview most of the content, and it's even better for previewing mobile content because it will use mobile screen sizes. But there it is. Everything's still here, still working, but my slideshow is just simply playing in the background. Now, if I wanted that to not to be a wipe, if I wanted it to be a dissolve instead, I can say, you know what? I don't want a horizontal transition. I just want a fade. So now if we preview this time we can preview it right here in Muse, and it will build it right in Muse. Again, we don't have to preview in a browser, and it will then just fade. As a matter of fact, it's probably faster to preview in Muse for those quick things that you just want to test. My navigation is still here for people that want to jump on their own, and great to see how this all works together. All right, so let's go back to the design, and that was number 7, slideshows. Let's close the home page for a moment, and let's jump back over to, I don't know, let's say that we want to go to services. Let's jump to services for a moment. And we added it, this is where we added in our video. We're going to move that over. I need to align those as well, but let's move this video over for now. And let's go over and add in some custom HTML. Now, I know that I told you in the last video we did a lot of that because we had to, but now we don't have to do as much of it because of the social widgets, but that doesn't mean you still don't need it. Now, even though, for example, if we go to the social widgets, there is a PayPal button, for example, that will add in a PayPal Buy Now button. But that's just it. It will just do the Buy Now button. What if I want to add in a more customized experience? Well, if I go to my shopping cart provider, they will let me customize more things than what that button will let me do. So for example, if I go grab some code that I got and customized from PayPal, I can copy that out. I can then insert HTML, paste that code in, that's all custom, click OK, give it a second, and then move that widget where I want. So more than it just being a buy now button, it's actually got more things in it. It's got a form field for the full name and age under 13. It's got a drop-down menu, and those are all things that were a part of the button that I customized over on PayPal. So there will be times where you will want to insert custom HTML from your various providers or various sites out there that do more than the social widgets will do. So that was number 8, inserting custom HTML. Number 9, let's go back to the design view and let's get out of services for a second. Number 9 is, let's say you're finished. Let's say you're finished building your desktop version, even though we didn't add any more slideshows to gallery. Well, let's go do one real quick. Slideshow. Since this is our galleries page, and we'll say that this is going to be a thumbnails slideshow. And there it is with our 3 images as thumbnails, and we could go in and put in our own images, obviously. But now we've got our site done. We've got our homepage, galleries, services. We didn't really do anything on About Us yet, and we got contact. And now we're ready to build the mobile versions, whether it's tablet or phone. So number 9 is, what do we want to do for tablet and phone? Well, let's say we want a phone version. Well, we click phone, and it will say, hey, what do you want to copy from? And I got excited when I first saw this. Oh yeah, copy everything from the desktop version. That's perfect. But it's not copying what you think. It's not copying the content. It's copying the site structure and design and all that. So when I click OK, it will basically just give me the same pages and same structure with a B master. And now I go in and create all the stuff. That's the way this works. So if I go to the home page, I would go lay out the phone version of the home page. If I want to go to the master and create maybe a menu for the home page. So let's see how that works really quick. A mobile, we're going to cheat and use two of the widgets to create a mobile version of a menu. So first one, we'll go to our widget library and we'll go to panels and we'll grab an accordion panel. Now the accordion panel is great for mobile menus. So we can go ahead and just stretch this out and we can get rid of the panels that we don't need. So we don't need that one and we don't need that one. So we just need the one panel, and we'll go ahead and just get rid of the sample stuff here. We'll call it menu, and we'll get rid of the placeholder or the sample placeholder text here. So an accordion is something that pops down or up, so or collapses up. So I'm just going to go ahead and extend this out. There we go. And I'm just going to go ahead now and put a menu inside of it. I'm going to grab a vertical menu. And once I put that, oops, grab the wrong thing there. Once I put that vertical menu inside, then I can go ahead and style it, just like you would any other widget. So I can change the font, change the size, change the color, change whatever I want. And now I have my nice accordion menu. So now let's see what that looks like. If we go back to the website, it's on every page. If I go to my home page, here, let me do one more thing. Let's go ahead and collapse it. There we go. If I go to my home page and I now preview this, I have a menu that drops down and a menu that collapses up. So that's how we create those cool mobile menus. And of course, it doesn't have to be the full width of the browser window. We could have made it smaller, but you get the idea. And one more option here that we can go in and say is we can go in for that widget on the master there. We can go to that widget and we can say that it either overlaps the items, which means it drops down over the content, or pushes the content down, which is the default. So it will push the content down if we don't check that box. So now that's how we'd add our mobile menu. Now we're running out of time here because we don't want to make this video too long. So I'm just going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and open up a site that's a little bit further along, and one that already has the phone version. So if we preview this one now, this is the one I've created that has the same slideshow in it. We can go ahead and click through. It's got some text, it's got the social stuff, and this is the version we can look at for the phone. Now we can say that this is displayed or tested on an iPhone 4 screen size, iPhone 5, Samsung Galaxy S3, or Nokia Lumia. So basically your iOS, Android, and Windows mobile devices previewing right here in Muse. Okay, what about tablet? Tablet, same thing. This is a tablet optimized version of the same thing with the text laid out a little bit differently and the slideshow, of course, bigger, and navigation and so forth and so on. So you can go in and create the optimized perfect version of each layout that you need. So if you want a tablet version with things moved around a little bit differently, because a tablet's bigger than a phone, you can do that. Or you want certain, like if we go back to the other site, maybe on the phone version, I don't need the About Us page. So I can delete that page from the phone version. It's still in the desktop version, but it's not on the phone version. So you can really optimize the experience for people that are navigating your site with their phone, or navigating your site with a tablet, or navigating the site with a desktop computer. So there you have it. Those are the 9 things that people want to know how to do. What's number 10? Number 10 is, once you're done with your site, whether it's a one-page site as I've done here, or a multiple page site with multiple layouts, how do you put it on the internet? How do you publish it? You have 3 options. Number 1, if we go back to this site, if I make any changes here, I can go in and just simply click File, Publish. Because this, it's warning me about 2 images there, because this site has already been published once, it already has the name here, I can just click OK, and it will upload any changes and then show me that site on the internet. And this is the actual URL to this site. You can go to it right now, TWPCC, or Terry White Photography, Creative Cloud.businesscatalyst.com. That's the URL for that page that I just put up as a test. Now, if we go in, back to Muse, that's great for people that want to take advantage of the hosting that's provided as part of your Creative Cloud membership. That's what the publish option does. You have up to 5 websites as a full Creative Cloud member that you can use to publish your site. If you want to host it somewhere else, I have other sites that I host other places. Then you can go File, Upload to FTP Host. And you put in your FTP information, and you will then upload the website complete, fully functional, even with the Typekit fonts, directly to any host in the world. Anybody that has FTP, away you go. And then your last option is, if you're not ready to host it just yet with Adobe or somewhere else, you always have the option to export as HTML. That will export out the entire site as a folder with all the images, CSS, JavaScript, HTML, everything necessary to work on that site, or hand it off to someone that's going to do more to it. So those are your options for getting the site out of Muse once you're done. And of course, any changes you make, you would either just hit publish again, as I just did, or upload again, as you would if it's an FTP site or FTP server, and it will just upload your changes. So you can continue working in Muse and update the site whenever you feel like it. Now, for those of you that want to see a site that I've done, you can go in here. Let's go back to the browser. Here's another site that I've done, macgroup.org. This site was completely done with Muse, and of course it has mobile versions as well. It even links in the navigation to an external blog that was created with WordPress. So you can even change your navigation to be to sites outside of Muse, or areas outside of Muse. So there's a tablet version, phone version, desktop version of this site. And again, this is macgroup.org, a nonprofit that I am a part of. All right, so that's it for the 10 things that beginners want to know how to do with Adobe Muse. Hope you learned something. And again, Muse just keeps getting better. I could just do this video every 6 months and there would always be new things to show. But well, this is a getting started. Keep in mind, I'll have other videos to show more depth on more other features of Muse. But this should get you going on creating that site, because it's just that easy. Hope you learned something. We'll catch you next time.